Hey there everybody, Eric from Outer Limitless coming at you today with another video. Now in today's video we are going to talk about 10 reasons why the SIG P226 is a firearm you should consider. I'm going to go through 10 main talking points, but in reality that's just going to drive a first look and impression of this SIG P226. Now when I say 10 reasons why for me I wanted to get my hands on one of these, well, if these 10 reasons work for me, chances are pretty good these 10 reasons are going to work for you. So what we're going to do today, we're going to go through this front to back. We're going to talk about this in pretty good detail, but I'm going to use these 10 main reasons to drive the discussion, to drive why, for me, I think this is definitely a firearm you should consider. Now, if you're in the market for a heavy-duty, robust, and reliable handgun, especially if you're talking 9mm, in my opinion, this is a fantastic, if not the way to go. So with that said, I have a whole bunch to do and a whole bunch to share with you. And if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about what I'm about to get into, do me a favor, stay tuned. So again, as we kick off this entire video, the SIG P226. Now, there is a ton of information out on the good World Wide Web about this handgun. There is absolutely no shortage of information when it comes to it. So I'm going to do an overview and talk about the highlights, maybe for those who aren't quite as familiar, but it's the main thing that, for me, there were 10 real good reasons why, when it all boiled down, this was the handgun I landed on. I had a little bit of a wish list in mind. I had things I knew I needed to accomplish in my sort of ownership ranking, call it, and this just rose right to the top. There was a close second, but this rose right to the top, and there wasn't much in the way of competition when it came down to it. So with that, let's flip the camera around and we'll get into those 10 reasons. And so what is reason number one? Well, reason number one for me is the fact that this is 9mm. At this point, I have put, I would say, a fairly substantial investment into 9mm as a whole. I've kind of taken the SIG P365, and this is the XL, which I've converted into the X macro, but I have sort of made this my commitment to my self-defense and carry pistol. And so, I have a lot of 9mm ammo, and I have, boxes and boxes of 9mm. It's fairly reasonable to shoot. And then, going to more of that full size, but as a, striker fired option, I do carry the Canik Mete SFT. So at this point, I started thinking, I'm like, well, do I really want a full-size SIG? Do I really want to get, something in 9mm, but is it striker fired? And then, I maybe get the 320, and the 320's in competition with my Mete, and then which one do I bring to the range and why? Well, it made me start to think I'm probably better off getting more of that full frame and getting something that's going to be hammer fired. And ultimately, at the end of the day, I wanted 9mm, and this kind of rose to the top for many of the other reasons you're going to hear today. So the fact of the matter, 9mm, now in many other options, you get much better capacity, but I live in a state that really loves to challenge you when you're under pressure and limit you to 10 rounds in your magazine so that you have to make that mag change in the heat of the moment. So they really do try here to hone in your mag change skills by limiting your capacity. So unfortunately for me, 10 round magazines, but you do get 3 of them with this. So very nice magazines. If you're familiar with Metgar, these are really nice Italian made, just well done in terms of the construction, the quality, the durability. So nice magazines that come with this should have perfect reliability from everything I've come to understand. And keep in mind the fact that my opinions today obviously are without shooting this yet. So that's an important point. This is simply my reasons for why I purchased this, my reasons for why this now is in my lineup, and not necessarily because of my beliefs and feelings of how it's shot. That will come definitely at a later date. But the other thing that I've come to really love about SIGs, they do come with very nice sights. Now, keep in mind the fact that, of course, I have a Gen 1 XL, so I have lost my rear sight when I put the optic, but these do come with the X-ray sights, those night sights, very nice and really easy to see. And that's also the case here with the 226. So the P226 in this configuration, definitely coming with awesome sights. You have the tritium vials both in the rear and the front. The front is that sort of day glow green, so a nice bright sight right there, right on the front. And again, these are just very easy to see. They are a dovetail design, so it's a little bit finicky to adjust them. Certainly no elevation adjustments, but you do get some adjustment in the windage. So all in all, nice sights here on the SIG P226. Which leads me to the next part of my reasoning for wanting to get one of these. These have a ton of different configurations. Now, in this particular case, this here is the Legion. So this is sort of on the higher end. There are other models that, have come out, like the X5, for example, which then notches this up, but it's not really quite the same pistol. It's a little bit different. The handle configuration's a little bit different. So in reality, this particular P226, in my opinion, is the about perfect configuration for that sort of hard use duty and just get down to it type of handgun. I am definitely a fan of how this looks. That's secondary to performance, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. But in terms of this particular handgun, barrel length will differ from model to model, which in this particular case has a 4.4 inch barrel. Of course, when you get into the X5, that does increase. And generally speaking, this is a little bit different than the other models because it is the Legion version. The controls are slimmed down. They're made lower profile and kind of get out of the way a little bit, which can be a pro or a con. Obviously, the pro being if they're out of the way, you are less prone to banging into them or accidentally manipulating them when you don't want to, but the con is they're a little more difficult to get to. So that includes everything from, in this particular case, you can see that slide catch, so that is a little more low profile, and then also pretty low profile here for your takedown lever, which this does obviously allow you to take this apart. Now, as we get a quick gander into here, very simple to take apart these handguns. That is not necessarily one of my 10 reasons, but that is definitely a wild card and an excellent factor. So you can see here, just so simple to work on, nice and clear and open. You can clean things fairly easy. This particular handgun, a little different than the other SIG models that have the removable fire control unit. So you need some, real smithing capability to fully disassemble this if you want a deep clean. But for general field stripping, very easy. You can see here, this is not very difficult. Simply remove, your spring and guide rod, no problem. A steel guide rod, which is awesome. Some companies using plastic guide rods, but in this particular case, it is steel, so that's nice and a little more durable. And then your barrel. So the barrel here, very simple. These come out with ease and everything nice and clean and clear, easy to use. So field stripping, no problem whatsoever. As we take a look at this, you can see just right from the factory. I'm trying to get a quick little gauge of this. Obviously, over time, things will wear. That's just part of it and break in and not a big deal. That's actually probably a good thing. And here, again, reassembly. Just a mere matter of seconds, nothing to this, and SIGs are very easy to work on, which I definitely like. So once everything is seated and back into appropriate order, this is actually fairly light. Well, we'll talk about the grip in a little bit, but I mean, that's surprising. I would have thought this alone would have been much heavier, but really it's the steel slide that's, giving us that heavy sort of feeling. Slipping everything into place. Locking that back, the release, And we're back in action there. So very simple to work on. I absolutely like that. So that is the wild card here. But as we move forward, so there are, again, many configurations of this particular handgun. But for the most part, these all have one thing in common, and that is the frame. I really wanted, and this leads me right into my talking point and reason number 3. I really wanted that metal or, just robust frame. I didn't want more polymer in my collection. I wanted to go with metal. So having the alloy on the frame, having that, nice quality, heavy duty and robust handgun in my collection, I thought would be sweet. The steel slide, everything just awesome. And I really do love the details on this. There is some really well done checkering on the front of the grip. Fairly rugged, and that was the first thing when I felt this. It felt rugged. It's not overbearing. It's not going to hurt or damage my hands, but it's just rugged. And same with around the grips. So as we take a look at the grips, these are an awesome G10 grip. Nice checkering, again, very aggressive. You can see they're a bolt-on design. They do have that Legion medallion right in there. Very cool. Just an excellent look and well formed. If you want to, there's a couple of things you could do. You could swap these out. I would probably never do that. You can also add a mag flare, which I might and probably will for this. But generally speaking, excellent grip. You can see this has a fairly pronounced beaver tail design. So on the back, you get that pronounced beaver tail. Nice undercut, and getting underneath, just a full grip. That really does fill out my hands and fill it out wonderfully. It's fairly thick and kind of chunky, and it just feels like I'm going to have an incredible grip on this handgun. I would say I have a size large hand, so keep that into consideration. This might be a little bit larger for some people, but in my opinion, that's a good thing, at least for me. So when it comes down to it, again, I would say my number 3 reason was that full frame feature, the fact that it's that beautiful alloy, just nicely done from SIG on this 226. Now I have to cover the fact that this particular handgun does have this unique finish, which is the Legion finish. Now I'm going to premise this entire thing by saying, if you watch a lot of reviews, people will complain about the durability of this finish. For me, there's a couple of, talking points here. Number 1, you will hear some people say that finish has improved over time. If it has, cool. If it hasn't, awesome. Because I don't mind wear, as long as the wear isn't damage. And as long as it's what I would like to consider hard use patina. If I am carrying this in my holster and I get holster rub, or I'm bringing this to the range and it has some little nicks and digs here and there, and that's because I'm using it, well, I'm okay with that. I don't mind that this might end up with some, little marks here and there, or rub here and there. And as long as I'm not abusing this, and, I don't want a big gouge because I racked this thing off the corner of a table or I dropped it on the ground. I mean, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is, if some of these areas wear away over time and it looks like this has been used and loved, I'm actually really happy about that. I'm cool with that. No problem. That'll work just fine for me. So real cool finish, unique to the Legion line, and I love the way this looks. That was another attractive feature about this particular model, in my opinion. So we've talked about it a couple of times, but my reason number 4 is the fact that this is hammer fired and not a striker fired option like I've had in the past. I really wanted to change things up. I wanted to learn the additional skills and manual of arms that you need to manipulate this type of firearm, the hammer fired firearm. And it really does open this up to a little bit of a different way of thinking, different way of carrying, and certainly some configurations that we really need to think about here. So this particular model, and we'll get into this in a little more detail shortly, is the SAO. There are two versions of this Legion, so the dual action, single action, and then SAO. And this particular method of carry is going to be different with the single action only than the other model. I really did like the idea of the dual action, single action, but in this particular case, either way you go, it is hammer fired. So this particular firearm will be carried cocked and locked. So that is part of this. That is something worth considering depending on, your comfort level or your skill level and your ability to appropriately and safely carry this with one loaded in the chamber with that hammer back and then locked into place. That is going to be a little different from the dual action, single action version. But again, I did really like the fact that this was hammer fired. So as we take a look at this in terms of the capabilities and, ease of racking this. So as we get into this, you'll see hammer is obviously retracted at this point as we rack this. And getting on the slide here, nice slide serrations. You can see forward and rear, not overly sharp, and these are pretty much the same as what I've come to know roughly on my 365 XL. So very similar there. And as I get on these, racking that, you can see at this point that would essentially send the hammer back. So again, it's going to look and feel and act just a little bit different, not incredibly different, but a little different than your striker fired pistols. So getting used to that will take a little bit of time. But at this point, this leads me to my next real feature, which is reason number 5. Reason number 5 for me is the trigger. And this trigger, and this specific trigger, is why I went with the single action only over the double action, single action option. Now, there is probably going to be debate. I completely understand that. Just for me, this seemed to make sense, and I decided if I'm going to make a mistake, I will make a mistake getting what is arguably one of the best triggers on a handgun that exist. Obviously, all of that is up for debate. I am not one that can solve that. I haven't even shot this gun yet. I'm going by what people say, and that's sometimes the best you can do while you're trying to make a buying decision. But I decided I wanted the flat face trigger. I decided I wanted the consistency of single action only. So the reality is, with a double action pistol, you have the ability, once you rack the slide, you can then, and instead of having the safety, you end up with that hammer release, and basically you can reset the hammer. But for me, this made a lot of sense because once you have it racked, you get the consistency of the pull on the trigger the same each and every time. So as we take a look at the trigger, little bit of take up there. You can see that defined wall right here, little creep, just a tiny bit, and then that break. And then when it comes to the reset, right there. So pretty short in terms of the reset, and you're on to the second shot. So I like that about this. I like the flat face trigger. I've really come to enjoy that quite a bit on my 365. And so having that consistency from shot to shot, having the consistency of the flat face trigger, I definitely liked. And the dual action, single action, again, does have more of that curved trigger. So depending on your liking and the configuration that you're trying to go for, that is really that consideration. So to me, again, the single action only definitely made sense. But the next feature that is critical, and keep in mind, I come from a different perspective than typical owners, as a gear reviewer, as a YouTube host, and somebody who gets their hands on tons of products. I need the ability to test those products. So I need a firearm that's going to be a platform for that. So things like, for example, a pick rail becomes critical. Now, you'll notice that almost all of my handguns end up with pick rails and probably some sort of a light, and that's because I'm asked to look at these things and test these things, and that's part of what we do here. So to have that availability on this is fantastic. Other models of the P226 do not have the pick rail, so if you like the clean look, there are other options out there. This one here is fairly aggressive. Again, it's just cut right into that alloy frame, so real, and they're not sharp, but just clean, squared off, and sharp lines. Really nicely done. You do end up with a little bit of adjustability, maybe less than on other handguns. You know, other models or other brands have certainly more rail out there. You can see this is cut back by a little bit. It doesn't extend all the way out. I actually think that would look awesome if it went all the way out. I look a little bit more of that sort of squared off look personally, but this is still really nice and gives you that little bit of a 1911 feel, even though it's not. But definitely effective, and the fact that this has the pick rail was critical in my mind and brought this to the top. In combination with my feature number 7 and reason number 7, this is an upgraded model. This particular handgun, the P226, obviously been out for quite a long time, but the Legion has been out for a number of years, and most recently they added the optics cut, which is awesome. So now at this point, this is optics cut. This will still be a little limited, where this is the Romeo 1 Pro or Romeo 2 footprint, which is also Delta Point Pro. You can put RMR on here, but you'll need a plate to kind of make up some of the gaps. And so I'll be a little limited, and I'll have to play around just a bit to get my optics to fit. But the good news is I can do it. Now, I wish this came with the, suppressor height sights. That way I could more easily co-witness. I think I should be able to still get on these. It might be tight once I get an optic mounted on here, but only time will tell. The only other criticism I have is I wish they had just leveraged the Cerakoted cover, but unfortunately, no, it's black, which it's okay. It's all right. It would have been so awesome just to match it. So why didn't they do that? Probably cost. It's a little bit of a miss, in my opinion. Reason number 8, which very easily could have been, well, reason number 1, but the prestige. This handgun definitely has prestige. Now, at this point, we're on the 40th anniversary of the P226, and there is, again, a ton of information out there, but if you do some research, generally speaking, in the 1980s, mid-1980s, there was really a sort of trial where the P226 went up against the Beretta, and it's the 92 FS, which ultimately the Beretta won out and became the M9. But there was a trial between these handguns to become the standard issue pistol for the military, in the U.S. military. But again, the Beretta won out. But beyond that, the Navy SEALs did adopt the P226 for a number of years, and then it was eventually swapped out for Glock. However, this definitely gained its reputation from its durability, its reliability, and its running for really the honor of being the U.S. military's standard issue pistol. Unfortunately, it didn't make it, but it definitely showed its true colors and its ability to perform. So that's another thing that, it's just that cool factor. It's just unique. And to think that the military for the first time was coming off of their M1911A platform for a standard pistol, that's just pretty cool. So again, for me, reason number 8, the prestige. Reason number 9, and again, this could easily be at the top of the list, but reliability. In those military tests, in the trials, both the Beretta and the SIG 226 performed incredibly. But when it boils down to the 226, it went, in essence, 2,800 plus rounds in between failures. And that's mean. So the average rounds between failures. That's awesome. I can definitely not say that about my existing handguns. Most of all, because I haven't put that many rounds through them. I'm coming close with the 365. I'm coming close to 1,000 on the Mete. And the Mete's been great. I haven't had any problems there. I had a few little issues with the 365, but I think it partly a little bit was break-in, to be honest, or just the ammo I had. But I haven't had really any reliability problems at this point in quite a long time. Very, very, very reliable on my 365. But point being, 2,800 rounds is a pretty reliable option. And so, you know, to really couple 9mm with really nice magazines, the simple general mechanics, but overall reliability and capability of the 226, the reliability really did catch my attention and made me realize this would be a solid investment, especially for something that for me is heavier duty, heavier use, and would really come into play if you really needed it. If push came to shove and you found yourself in a little bit more heat, this would be a fantastic option. So reliability for me was reason number 9. But reason number 10, aftermarket support. So depending on what model you get of the 226, I would say results may vary, but generally speaking, the 226 platform has a lot of aftermarket support. I am not personally going to change out a lot about this. I paid for the Legion to be a Legion. I paid for the Legion to have these grips, to have this feel, to have this trigger, to have this Cerakote, to have the optics cut. So I'm personally probably not going to do a whole heck of a lot to change this up, but I could, because there's a lot of aftermarket support. For me, the main thing is probably going to be if I decide at some point to change out to more, suppressor height sights if I need to. I have done that with my Canic, and I have a real awesome set of XS sights, which I love. I could certainly do that here. The other thing is, for me, it's really about the holsters. I think the holsters are definitely going to be critical, and I have found some great companies that not only give you good options for the 226 Legion, but the 226 Legion with various different weapon lights, which is key. So I do have a couple of holsters coming. That's going to be just make or break for my ability to effectively carry this, but I'd say for the most part, outside the waistband. Could you inside the waistband this and it would be a little bit heavy, a little bit big, a little bit bulky? I am going to. I'll tell you that. I'm absolutely going to at some point. Definitely playing, practicing, seeing what works, doesn't work, testing the waters a little bit. That's what I need to do. So I will inside the waistband carry this, but I'd say generally an OWB solution is a better way to go. And so again, for me, the 10 main reasons why the 226 just makes sense. Because 9mm, it just works. I can shoot it effectively. It's fairly cheap. It matches my other handguns. I got a lot of it kicking around, so 9mm makes sense. All the different configurations. So even if you don't like my Legion, there are a whole bunch of different options out there. And if you do like my Legion, you can even get it with different trigger configurations. That's really cool. Number 3, the full frame handgun. Awesome. The steel construction, the alloy, just a good durable and just robust feel in the hands. The fact that it's hammer fired, I love that. So the hammer fired handgun, really cool. Just changing it up. It's not striker fired like all these other polymer handguns that you get your hands on. Just mixing it up. That fantastic trigger, again, that in my opinion, that single action only, just a real nice trigger, that super short and quick reset. That's awesome. So just awesome for me. I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to get this out into the field for that reason alone. The ability for me to test other gear, so the pick rail, my ability to put weapons lights. I use the Mantis training tool. having that pick rail, absolutely awesome. So that was number 6. Number 7, the optics cut makes a lot of sense these days. You know, red dots, green dots, the ability to put your reflex sight, absolutely a must on the modern day handgun. So we got that, check that box. The prestige, the sort of legacy that comes with this model, and at this point, the reliability and durability, and the fact that this has just been proven. So 8 and 9, reasons 8 and 9, the prestige, the reliability, just bring this right to the top. And again, number 10, that aftermarket support. So there are other reasons why the SIG P226 might make a lot of sense for you. Certainly does for me. This is just one little piece of it. I love this handgun. I'm looking forward to this. I'm really excited to get this to the range. I think it's going to be a game changer. I mean, I didn't even talk about the shootability and the accuracy. That's a whole other aspect. I will get into that in more detail once I start shooting this, but there are just so many things and so many reasons why, when you really look deep and hard and try to find that perfect handgun, if you're in the market for 9mm, in my opinion, this does rise right to the top. Now, I am going to say that the Beretta and the M9A4 model, which is out, is a close second. You could consider that. I did. That's what led me down this rabbit hole. But between the two, this one did come to the top. So, again, guys, I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope it helped you with your making decision, or maybe you already have one of these and you agree with me. Maybe you don't. Leave some comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And so, all right, guys, thanks for stopping by. If you like this content, do me a favor. Take a look at my Outer Limitless channel, which is more of my primary gear. On that channel, I cover everything from hiking, camping, and backpacking excursions, all the gear that goes with it. So from sleep systems, shelter systems, knives, axes, backpacks, flashlights, you name it, that's my Outer Limitless YouTube channel. So, all right, guys, thanks for stopping by. I hope you like what you saw. I hope you found it a little bit informative. If you like what you saw, please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Take care now. I'll see you soon.